Aleph Gimel.
Aleph Daled.
You're right. I forgot to put the check next to it. Okay. As for trees, pears, and small wild pears, and quince and sorb apples are not Kilayim with one another. The apple and the crab apple, peaches, almonds, jujubes, and lotes, they are though they resemble one another, they are Kilayim with one and the other. Um, Horseradish and radish, mustard and wild mustard, Greek gourd and Egyptian gourd and bitter apple, though they are similar to the one to the other, they are Kilayim with one and the other. The wolf and the dog, the wild dog and the fox, the goats and the deers and wild goats and ewes, the horse and the mule and the donkey, the ass and the wild donkey, though they resemble one another, they are Kilayim with one another. Okay.
Okay. Excuse me. Okay. Zion. Ein mevin ilan be'ilan, yarak be'yarak, lo ilan be'yarak, lo yarak be'ilan. So when it comes to grafting, you can't graft tree onto tree. That's clear. Now, yarak be'yarak, a vegetable onto a vegetable. No, that's an interesting situation. Like, we're not entirely sure how you would do such a thing, but the Mishnah is going to carry on and explain this. You want to turn on your video, by the way?
Oh, it's not on. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yarak beyarak, lo ilan beyarak, and not a tree and a vegetable. Basically, grafting a tree onto a vegetable. Lo yarak be'ilan, you can't graft a vegetable onto a tree. All of them are aser. Rabbi Yehuda matir yarak be'ilan. However, Rabbi Yehuda says that yarak be'ilan is not a thing. Why? Because according to Rabbi Yehuda, it's only if you're going to create some kind of new entity from this grafting, and that's dafka when you've got ilan be'ilan or yarak be'yarak. But when you crossing a tree and a vegetable, you're not going to do this permanently. It's just as you'll see in the coming Mishnayos, it's a temporary state of affairs, and you're not going to create a permanent thing that's got lettuce leaves growing out of an apple tree. Okay, so as far as Rabbi Yehuda is concerned, there's no inyan of kilayim between trees and vegetables.
What happened? No, go ahead. All right, a clementine, isn't that an offshoot of an orange? Is it, or is it a separate? Was it grafted from something? Was it made?
I mean, isn't it? And at the moment, it's a species b'fnei atzmo, and it's fertile. It may be that there was some kind of crossbreeding that was done in order to create a clementine between. I don't even know. I don't even know what the original species were. It's possible that they were close enough that they wouldn't have been considered kilayim in the first place.
So my actual question is that like shotnuts, we can't wear shotnuts. Now, if we have a fruit or a vegetable that's been grafted and it's made into a new, is it an issue to eat that then?
No. The only thing that's asher after the fact is kilai hakerem.
Okay.
So if a non-Jew went, it's fine.
And if it came from a Jew, Nama Aretz didn't.
So I think then we're going to start getting into shilas of shogeg, mazid, and not wanting to encourage Abri Avera. But in terms of the produce itself, there's no isser on it.
No isser on it. Okay. That was my actual question, though. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So I mean, we do have things that are definitely there are lots of fruits that are on the market that are the result of crossbreeding, and they're all completely permitted.
I think there are like tomatoes and cherry tomatoes, and then some plum tomatoes and things like that, which do.
Yeah, and genetically modified produce is 100% okay.
Okay.
Okay. Mishna ches ein not in Irakos besoch sadan shal shikma. So now the Mishnah catches our confusion and says, like, what exactly is yarak be'ilan, and what is ilan be'yarak? And so it explains here. Okay, if you have a sycamore tree, and it's got nice big branches and the what's it called, the space between the branches, the crook of what's the name of the junction in a tree? There's a special name for it, where it forms like a cleft. I'm not sure
I don't know.
if there's let's say there's a cleft in the tree,
Okay.
and now you think, oh, wouldn't this be a nice place to plant some vegetables? It's a little it's a little natural a live vegetable planter, and the Mishnah says nope, you can't do that. Because Rabbi Yehuda would permit this, but Chachamim, the halacha follows the Chachamim, say that that this is called kilayim of vegetables in a tree. Ein markivin pegam al gabe kida levana. Okay, so now he has grafting. If you have there's a bush, it's a wild bush that has that's quite fragrant according to Kahati. Which has yellow flowers, and putting us on top of a kida levana, which is a kind of eitz bosim, which is a fragrant tree. Because these are cases of kilayim, of planting a vegetable inside a tree. Okay. Now the reverse case, ein not in yichur shelteina letoch chatzub. Now, if let's say a branch of a fig tree breaks, and you want it to sprout again, you wanted to what's the word? Come on, and when you take the easiest plants to do this on is what are geraniums. You stick a geranium in the water and you wait for it to grow new roots.
Right.
Gosh, the word, there's an English word for this when you
I don't know anything
when
about
you make
plant.
it when you make it sprout new roots.
It's not grafting. It's
No, that's not grafting. It's
when you get. I could ask my wife. She'll tell me maybe.
Okay. My mother will tell me. She does. She knows how to about this. Okay. I've gone totally blank on the word, but basically you stick if you take a geranium's the easiest to do it. You break off a branch from a geranium, you say, oh, you go to your neighbor and say, this is such a beautiful geranium, and so he'll go and break off a branch and say, yeah, take this, stick it in water,
Called a shoot. A shoot?
Yeah, no, that's not a shoot. A shoot is something that grows off the base of the of the plant, and it grows new roots, and you can stick that back into the soil again, and now you've got a brand new geranium.
My wife does that. She plants, puts things in water, and they grow.
Yeah.
No.
So here we're taking a fig, and instead of sticking it into a glass of water, we're sticking it into a chatzuv, which is a kind of an onion.
Yeah.
Okay. And basically the idea is that why would you do such a thing, is because this will help it. It will help it to grow. Okay. And this is and this shehemakero, because it will Kahati explains that makero is lashon kor. It'll cool it. Okay, so that the shoot of the fig will oh, hold on a second. Is this for metil alav tail? Oh, this is interesting. This looks like to be for the benefit of, and that's because I'm looking at that for the next case of this Marshall Geffen. Right. So in either case, so in the first case, we're talking about where it's being done where you're taking a fig branch and planting it basically, and in those cases, because it's being planted like directly into the vegetable, it's that's called the kilayim. And similarly, taking a branch of a grapevine and plunging it into a watermelon, because the watermelon is full of water, because it'll get nice water into it and it'll grow nicely. In both of these cases, you're basically planting a tree inside a vegetable, and that's also called kilayim.
It says here in the one previous, one may not plant a fig tree into a cistus.
Hmm.
And the plant of the onion family, the roots of which strike deep in the soil, do not spread out. They are therefore planted to mark the boundaries of fields.
Ah, okay.
So, and it says, according to the Gemara, Yeshua marked with it the boundaries of the land of Israel. The Mishnah teaches that it's forbidden to plant a fig tree shoot into a cistus, even in order to cool it.
Right. Okay.
Such, yeah, okay,
Okay. So that's so then both of these are planting a tree into a vegetable.
right.
אין נותנים זרע דלס לתוך החלמיס שתהא משמרו מפני שהוא ירק וירק. And also grafting vegetables onto vegetables. As an example, is taking a gourd seed and putting it into a chalamis. Chalamis is
An edible wild plant,
right, an edible wild
right?
plant.
Into a mallow.
Mm-hmm.
And a
So
wild plant with
chalamis.
moist
So
stems
chalamis
and grains of
means
seed.
right, an edible wild plant, which has okay, and so why would a person put the seeds inside it? Because it will preserve them. Okay, because this is also a case of vegetable in vegetable. So these are all forms of so these are all forms of kilayim. Whether we like ilan be'ilan is obvious because ilan be'ilan is very common, right? And that's the easiest thing. But how would you have kilayim of vegetables involved in anything? So so the Mishnah brought us all these examples. Okay, now Mishnah tes hatomen lefes utnonos tachas hagefen. So now when you have radishes and turnips, which are typically bundled together and buried in the ground for preservation. Okay, now this brings about some interesting shilas because now this is something that it's something that grows in the ground and it's being stored in the ground. So the Mishnah comes to tell us that if you put this under a grapevine, your immediate thought is, oh my gosh, kilaya karim. This is very bad. Im hayu miktas alav megulin. So if some of the leaves are sticking out above the surface, now the leaves that are sticking out above the surface are only going to be nogea to the case of Shabbos, as we'll see later. But not all of the things need to have the leaves above the surface. But we'll see. There's no chashash. You don't have to worry about kilayim because the fact that you're burying them together in a bundle shows that it's not for planting. He's just doing it for preservation, and if there happens to be a grapevine above it, okay, no, it's not so bad. Because
what if one thing that you're burying underneath and the roots grow and they get connected for some reason to the other?
now if it starts growing, now that's when we can start having problems. Correct. But here we're talking about the happy case where everything is just being stored. And it's not to grow, and it's not grow. Okay. The recording still happening? Yes, the recording is still happening. Okay, great. Okay, so now on Shabbos you wouldn't be allowed to
Move the sand.
You wouldn't be allowed to move the sand. So but if you have leaves on top and you can grasp the leaves and yank it up, then not only do you not have a problem with muktzah, but you also don't have a problem with misham tolesh. Right? You can't pick fruits on Shabbos, but this is just buried.
Why can you do that? Because it's buried. You're saying like why can't you pick an apple off a tree? Because it's
exactly because that's tolesh. That's kotzer. That's a told of kotzer, and that would be that would get you misa.
Right.
Okay, but if it's just in the ground for storage, lechatchila he's allowed to pull it out by the leaves.
Are there any fruits that grow underground?
Fruits that grow underground? No.
Like what we're talking about? I don't think so.
No, I mean, anything that grows in the ground is by definition a vegetable.
Uh,
And while a tomato is botanically a fruit, it is nonetheless classed as a vegetable, and we say Adama because it's an annual.
right.
Um,
I don't think so. I didn't think there were anything like that. I can't think of any fruits that are underground.
mm.
Strawberries are considered hadama anyway, but they just
Yeah,
strawberries.
strawberries have an interesting halacha because there's a great shala of tshuva from Rav Moshe Feinstein about strawberries that actually make her adin they should be eights.
Right, right. He goes to that whole thing. Right, right.
Yeah. Anyway, has Hazareach. So now, having done this case, now we're going to see what's the halacha of planting kilayim. Okay, Hazoreach chita sora ka'achas. If he takes one kernel of wheat and one kernel of
Barley.
barley, and he sows them in one place. Harei ze kilayim. This is a person who's chayev kilayim midaraisa, and you get malchus for doing that.
Mhm.
This is the Tanakama. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Eino kilayim ad sheyehu shtei chitim us'ora, or chita us'tei soim, or chita us'ora v'kusemes. You have to have 3 seeds going in there, involving a mixture. So two of wheat and one of barley, or vice versa, or 3 separate ones. Why? What's Rabbi Yehuda's svara over here? Because the pasuk says sadcha lo tizra kilayim, your field. You may not sow your field with kilayim. It must be a field that's already been sown, that you're not allowed to put kilayim into it. So the issur of kilayim only takes place if you've already got two seeds of one type, and now you've got a second type that you're adding into the mix.
Uh-huh.
That's the kilayim that you're putting in. This is according to Rabbi Yehuda. The halacha that Kahati says at the end over here is that land, even though it is not, it hasn't been planted, is still called a sadeh. But when it comes to a kerem cannot be called a kerem until it's been planted. So therefore, if he plants a chita and a sora in one movement, he is chayev because of kilaya zeraim. So okay, ve'eno chayev mishum kilaya kerem ad sheyizrach chita sora v'chartzan v'mapal yad echad. But when it comes to a kerem, that needs 3. It basically needs to put a chita and a sora and a grape seed in one movement.
This says, what does it say? A wheat grain, barley, and spelt. Yeah. Or it says.
No, I'm talking about. Are you looking at the end of the kati?
Yeah. Not in the end. I was looking actually in the Mishna.
Look at the end at the last statement that Kahati makes on the Mishnah.
The halakha, while endorsing the view, however, limits the term vineyard to an already existing plantation. Hence, whoever sows wheat barley together transgresses kilayim of seeds, but not vineyard kilayim. He transgresses only if he sows wheat, barley, and grape kernel with one throw of the hand.
So as far as the kerem is concerned, we hold like Rabbi Yehuda there, but we agree with Rabbi Yehuda. But in general, planting two opposite seeds together is an avera of kilayim.
When they plant these seeds, they're always doing it with a hand, or they have machines, whatever. They're doing it. That's how they go and they.
Whatever your action is. I mean, if you're
Right.
using a tool to do it or using your hand to do it, I don't think it makes a difference.
If they do it one at a time, I'm going to go down the rows now and I'm put barley in. Oh, now I'm going to go back and do it again. I'm going to do wheat, and I'm going to do grapeseed, or I'm going to do spelt or whatever.
So if he goes over the same space, and that would then he's putting a foreign seed into the same place as the original seed. If it's the same place, that is.
Right. So it's still climb. Same thing. Very complicated.
Okay. Okay. Demai Vav Gimel.
A priest or a Levite who leased from an Israelite, just as they share the chulin, so they share the truma. Reb Eliezer says the Maasrot also belongs to them, for they came on that condition. If an Israelite leased from a priest or from a Levite, the Maasrot belonged to the landowner. Yisrael says if a provincial leased from a Yerushalayite, the Ma'aser Sheni belongs to the Yerushalayite. But the comments say the provincial can go up and eat it in Yerushalayim. If one leases olive trees for oil, just as they share the chulin, they also share the truma. Rabbi Yehuda says if an Israelite leases from a priest or from a Levite olive trees for oil to share half the proceeds, the maestrit belongs to the owners. Okay. I find it funny that they call the Kohen the priest, and the other one they call a Levite. I guess they, instead of saying a Kohen and a Levite, just.
Well, what English word would you use for a Levite?
Yeah, that's the only thing. There is no English word. An assistant priest, I guess. So.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Now we're over on.
Okay, we're in Paya Gimel Aleph.
Okay. We're going to finish the Mai soon. So where are we going to go into after the Mai?
Into Kilayim.
Back. Oh, we're having the Kilayim, so we're finished with that then. Okay. All right. Gimel Aleph. The rectangles of produce between the olives. Beit Shammai say payah from each one. Beit Hillel say one for all, and they admit that if the tops of the rows are mixed, then he gives payah from one for all. If a person checkers his field and left moist stalks, Rabbi Akiva says he gives payah from one each, and the Kachamim say from one for all. And the Kachamim agree with the Rabbi Akiva that if a person sows dill or mustard in 3 places, he gives payah from each one. Excuse me. If a priest plucks moist onions for the marketplace and he reserves dry ones for storage time.
Sorry, why a priest?
I said a priest. I said in the night. It's a person.
Person. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry. If a person plucks moist onions for the marketplace and he reserves dry ones for storage time, he gives payah for those separately and for these separately. And similarly in the case of beans, similarly in the case of a vineyard. The person who thins gives from what is left for what he left, and the person who plucks from one place gives what remains for everything. Okay. That's good. Okay.
Right. Nida. Vav.
Every growth that is subject to payah is subject to tithes, but there can be a growth that is subject to tithes but is not subject to payah.
Okay, hold on. We are holding in payah. Okay, which things are chayav in masros but are not chayav in payah?
I'm sorry, I can't. No, I'm sorry. We probably just did it, but go ahead.
Okay, so remember, payah is chayav only on the produce that's harvested all at once. So if, for example, you have figs,
right?
There's no one harvest time for figs, and therefore fig trees are exempt from payah.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Every growth that is subject to payah is subject to tithes, but there can be a growth that is subject to tithes but not subject to payah. Every animal that is subject to rishis agez is subject to the priestly gifts, but there can be an animal that is subject to the priestly gifts but is not subject to rishis agez.
Okay, well, there's only one animal that is chayav to rishis in rishis agez, and that is
is it goats?
Sheep.
Sheep. I was close. They look alike.
The ones that have wool.
Well. Yeah. Every growth that is subject to beer is subject to shavias, and that there can be a growth that is subject to beers but not subject to beer. Okay.
What are the things that don't have beer but nonetheless are subject to shvius? Things that where the produce it remains in the field the whole time. The beer only happens when there's no more of that type of produce in the field. But if it stays on the trees for a year, all year round, then there's no din of beer at all.
There's no beer at all. Okay. All right.
And I was just thinking that a nice example of that might be lemons. Because if I didn't pick the lemons off my tree, they would stay there until the next year. I've already, I'm just looking at my lemons outside now. I haven't picked all the lemons off my tree, and they're already starting to show buds now.
Really, I didn't. I should look at mine because I have lots of lemons on there, and we just can't use all of them. I tell people to take them, but nobody's coming to take them. They're good.
Oh, okay. Well, if we ever run out, I'll know where to go.
I have tons of lemons there. My wife made lemon cookies and stuff like that, but
Oh, we make lemonade.
Yeah, but so much sugar in that thing.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's not
true.
Good for me. Not good for her. Doesn't stop me, but it's not.
Okay.
An ola and a pen and a plummet and weights and curum and a ruler and a writing tablet are tame. But all unfinished wooden utensils are tamei except for those made from eskeros. Eskero, eskero, you know what I mean,
Ishkara, which he said is boxwood, I think.
right? You have Yehuda says a utensil made of olive branch is tahor until its sap is removed. A sword, a knife, a dagger, a spear, a hand sickle, a reaping sickle, trimming scissors, and the scissors of barbers that were separated, they're tamei. Rav Yossi says the part closer to the handle is tamei, but the part closer to the tip is tahor. Regarding shears that were separated into two parts, Rav Yehuda rules them tamei, and the sages rule them tahor. Calligraphone, whose spoon was removed, is tamei on account of its teeth. If its teeth were removed, it's tamei on account of its spoon. The applicator whose spoon was
So
removed
these are all kalim that have got things on either end.
on either end, from like the pictures, right?
Yeah.
An applicator whose spoon was removed is tamei on account of its tip, and if the tip was removed, it's tamei on account of the spoon. A stylus whose nib was removed is tamei on account of the eraser. If the eraser was removed, it's tamei on account of the nib. A zoma whose spoon was removed is tamei on account of the fork, and if the fork was removed, it is tamei on account of the spoon, and the same applies to the teeth of a tiller. The measure for all of these as much as necessary, for all of these is as much as necessary in order to do their work.
Right. So how much can be broken off? If it can still be used for its normal usage, then it's still tamei. But
Okay.
if it's broken to the point where you couldn't use it anymore, then it is tahor.
Okay. Sanhedrin?
Sanhedrin.
Sanhedrin. Okay. Bait. The king may not judge nor be judged. He may not testify nor be testified against. He does not perform chalitza, nor is chalitza performed with his wife. He does not perform yibum, nor is yibum performed with his wife. Rabbi Yehuda says if he wishes to perform chalitza or yibum, he is remembered favorably. They said to him, they do not listen to him. No one may marry his widow. And Yehuda says a king may marry the widow of another king, as we find that David married the widow of Saul. As it is stated, and I gave you the house of your master and the wives of your master in your bosom. If someone close to him
Just saying,
died,
I want to see what the Tanakh says about that in Kati. It says that the covenant is it's got to be wives that are Islam, the ones that are that he can marry. So okay, so he was in Almanasa.
the
Okay,
rabbis,
yeah.
the rabbis, however, dispute this and interpret the verse to refer to the women from the house of the king who were permissible to David, such as Mirav and Michal, the daughters of Shaul.
In the Adonecha. Right. Okay. So that's referring only to the. So they say that he cannot marry the widow of the previous king. So, okay.
If someone close to him dies, he does not leave the entrance of his palace. Rabbi Yehuda says if he wishes to go out after the beer, he may go out. For so we find concerning David that he went out after the beer of Abner, as it is stated, and King David followed the beer. They said to him, this was only to placate the people. When they feed him the morning's meal, all the people sit on the floor, and he sits on a dogash.
Right. We said about David going out after Avner was because Avner had been assassinated, and there was a lot of rumbling that David had been involved in it, and therefore David needed to make the point politically. He needed to make it very clear that he was against this assassination, and he was mourning particularly over Avner.
He may wage a discretionary war with the consent of the court of F71. He may break through to make a path for himself, and no one may impede him. And the king's path has no limits. All the people plunder and place it before him, and he takes the first portion. Let him not take for himself many wives, only 18. Reb Yehuda says he may take for himself even many, as long as they do not turn his heart. Reb Shimon says even one, if she turns his heart, he may not marry her. When one goes when one goes out to war, he may. I skipped the page.
In Cain.
If so, why does he say, "Let him not take for himself many wives"? Even if they are like Abigail, let him not accumulate for himself many horses, only enough for his chariots. And silver and gold, let him not accumulate for himself greatly, only enough to pay his troops. If he writes a Torah scroll for himself, when he goes out to war, he takes it with him. When he returns, he brings it back with him. And when he sits in judgment, it is with him. When he reclines, it is before him, as it is stated, and it shall be with him, and he shall read it in all of the days of his life.
Okay, that's it.
Okay.
And Sukkah.
Okay. We kind of think that Pesach would be next, but
Yeah, I think in Seder Moed the Masechtas are in the decreasing order of size.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right. Aleph Aleph. A sukkah that is more than 20 amot high is invalid. And Yehuda validates it. And a sukkah that is not 10 tefachim high, or one that does not have 3 walls, or one whose sunny area is greater than its shade, is invalid. An old sukkah, Beis Shammai invalidates it, and Beis Hillel validates it. And what is considered an old sukkah? Whatever was built 30 days prior to the festival. But if one built it specifically for the festival, even if he put it up at the beginning of the year, it is valid. If one builds a sukkah under a tree, it is as though he had built it inside his house. If a sukkah is built atop another sukkah, the upper one is valid and the lower one is invalid. Rabbi Yehuda says if there can be no tenancy in the upper one, only the lower one is valid. If one spread a sheet over the sukkah because of sun, or beneath it because of the falling leaves, or if one spread it over a 4-poster bed, it's invalid. However, one may spread it over a 2-poster bed.
Over a 2-poster bed, right? Because it's not really forming enough of a shelter because over a 2-poster the sides would be too steep. Okay. That's us.
Great. Okay, have a great day. Enjoy.
You too.
And
Okay.
I will see you, Mr. Shem, tomorrow.
It's Hashem tomorrow.
Also
It may be and tonight, yes. It may be a little late tomorrow because it's a fast. So I'll be in touch when we've finished davening.
And we have Slikos and all that. All right. So sometime between 7:45 to 8. Okay.
Yeah, something like that. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.